Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay. I did not sleep well last night, but we're ready. Hey guys, original link to the video. Oh my god, I'm so down. Okay, let's do it, for real. This sounds amazing. I'm sure a lot of people would not, well, in some ways might love being with America, and in some ways not. So I understand the mixed opinions on this, but I'm 100% in. Okay, let's do it.
The British Empire was...
What if the Anglosphere united into a single nation? So, not including like South Africa and Ireland. Are there any other English-speaking nations? I'm not going to count India, even though a lot of Indian people seem to know English, but I wouldn't say that's their main language, so let's go.
Was amongst the greatest empires the world has ever seen.
Original link to the video from Geostats Productions, top of the description, preemptive like. Let's go. Hey guys,
Its land...
this has been a mess of an intro, but let's go.
The British Empire was amongst the greatest empires the world has ever seen. Its land area of 35 million square kilometers or 13 million square miles,
Bigger than the
every
Mongols,
continent of the world, was the largest of any empire in history. At its height in 1922, the empire was home to 458 million people, which was about a quarter of the global population at the time. This is a larger percentage of the population than the current most populous country, China, currently makes up. While the British Empire may now be long gone, its legacy is very much alive, and the dominance of English as the international language of media, culture and finance. Through institutions like the Commonwealth, and arguably most prominently through the continued global importance of the 5 Anglosphere nations, of the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and United States.
He's so big.
While America may have broken away
It'd be
from
so big. It'd be too big. You have Canada, USA, and Australia. 3, I don't know if Australia is top 5, but UK and Canada certainly are, and Australia is close. Yeah, it would be ginormous, much bigger than Russia.
Empire violently. The other 3 broke off diplomatically, which is why they still share a monarchy as well as a parliamentary system of government with the UK. Today all 5 of the nations are close military allies, and have cooperated in several recent conflicts, most notably the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This begs the question, what would happen if these 5 nations with a closely shared history and culture united into a single country? That is what this video seeks to find. Shared history and culture united into a single country.
So you have these ferns for New Zealand, and then the maple leaf for Canada, the kangaroos for Australia, Union Jack in the middle, some red and white stripes, and the stars. This is honestly pretty good.
That is what this video seeks to find out. A united Anglosphere would have an absolutely gargantuan population of 475 million people, replacing the United States as the 3rd most populous nation in the world, behind India and China. Of this population, the United States would contribute about 335 million people, almost exactly 70% of the Anglosphere's population. The other 4 would contribute the remaining 30%, with the UK contributing 14% with its 67 million people, Canada contributing 9% with its 40 million people, Australia contributing 5% with its 26 million people, and New Zealand contributing...
It's crazy how Canada and...
Australia 7 million people.
Canada and California have a similar population. California might even have more people. And, I mean, California is a large state, but much smaller than Canada. And I know most Canadians live close to the border, a lot, like right here.
Contributing 9% with its 40 million people, Australia contributing 5% with its 26 million people, and New Zealand contributing 1.1% with its 5.2 million people. The Anglosphere would have a population substantially larger than that of the EU, having a population about 26 million people, or 1 metric Australia, higher than the EU's population of 448 million people. Its population would be fairly diverse in terms of ethnicity, language and religion. As a first language, English would be spoken by about 78% of the population, followed by Spanish, which would be spoken by 9%, and French, which would be understood by just under 2%. Various other languages would have hundreds of thousands to millions of speakers, including Chinese, Hindi, Polish and Japanese.
Okay. So I think he's including a large Hispanic population in the US knowing Spanish, but most of Hispanic people in the U.S. know English as well. So English being understandable, I would assume by more than 90% of people instead of 70.
Languages would have hundreds of thousands to millions of speakers, including Chinese, Hindi, Polish, and Japanese. In total, people of European ancestry would constitute 312 million people, being mostly descendants of British and Irish people, but with substantial numbers of other Europeans as well, notably Germans, making up about 65% of the population. People of Latin American ancestry would constitute 13% of the population. People of Sub-Saharan Africa...
That's literally my ancestry, these three.
Germans, making up about 65% of the population. People of Latin American ancestry would constitute 13% of the population. People of Sub-Saharan African ancestry would constitute 10% of the population. And people of East and South Asian ancestry would contribute the remaining 9% of the population. With the remaining 3% belonging to other groups, including people of mixed racial ancestry, people of Middle Eastern and North African ancestry, and people of Pacific Islander ancestry. In terms of religion, the Anglosphere would be home to 276 million Christians, constituting 58% of its total population. Broken down further, Protestants would be the largest Christian sect, making up 35% of the population, while Catholics would make up 20%. Mormons would make up 1.5%, and Orthodox Christians would make up 0.7%.
Mormons.
The second largest group would be those of no religious affiliation, constituting a majority in all regions of the Anglosphere outside North America and growing in numbers. This group includes atheists, agnostics, and people who consider themselves to be spiritual but not religious, numbering...
Okay. All right. Why are there signs for atheism? Like, it makes it seem like it's another religion. You know, like... Well, okay.
Majority in all regions of the Anglosphere outside North America and growing in numbers. This group includes atheists, agnostics, and people who consider themselves to be spiritual.
Aren't atheists and agnostic the same thing? Doesn't an agnostic just be like, I don't know? And an atheist is just like, I don't know. Or... that's a whole other discussion, I guess.
Not religious. Numbering 131 million people, they would constitute about 28% of the Anglosphere's population. The third largest religious group would be Muslims, constituting about 2.3% of the Anglosphere's population. The fourth largest group would be Jews, who would constitute about 1.7% of the population. The fourth largest group would be Jews, who would constitute...
Crazy how Jewish and Islam are that close, knowing how few Jewish people there are in the world compared to Muslims.
1.7% of the population. The only other religious group to make up more than 1% of the population would be Hindus at 1.2%. Overall, the Anglosphere would be one of the most ethnically and religiously diverse nations in the world. In terms of land area, the Anglosphere would be an absolutely gargantuan 28 million square kilometers, or 10 million square miles. Not only would it be about 10 million square kilometers bigger than the current largest country, Russia, it would also be the second largest state to have ever existed, only behind the historic British Empire itself. This massive area shouldn't come as a surprise, given 3 of its constituent countries, Canada, the United States, and Australia, are already some of the largest nations in the world, being the second, third, and sixth largest countries by area respectively. The UK and New Zealand would contribute less than 1% of the Anglosphere's land area each. The Anglosphere would be home to some of the most stunning scenery in the world, including the Rockies, Appalachia, the mountains of New Zealand, the outback of Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, the Lake District of England, Snowdonia of Wales, the Highlands of Scotland, and the Mons of Northern Ireland would all contribute to the collective scenery.
What was the last one?
And the Mons of Northern Ireland
the
would all
Mons?
contribute to the collective scenery of the superstate. Not only would the Anglosphere be the largest nation in the world by far, it would also arguably have the most natural beauty. Unsurprisingly, given the United States is already the largest economy in the world, the Anglosphere would be the world's largest economy. Its GDP of $34 trillion would be roughly double the size of the second largest economy, China. It would be home to some of the biggest centers of global finance in the world, including Wall Street.
I feel like London and New York in the same country would be overpowered.
New York, the City of London, and British territories which serve as offshore tax havens, such as Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, and Guernsey and Jersey. Not only that, it would also be home to the media powerhouse of Hollywood, as well as the tech powerhouse.
True, it's one of the big things I learned growing up is just, we all kind of realize America is a very powerful country, but you know the difference between soft and hard power? Like hard power being essentially your military and upfront strength, and your soft power being like your peacetime influence, you know? And the soft power, I didn't quite realize. Like, I always grew up assuming, like, every country probably had its own kind of Hollywood, and I didn't realize how pervasive American movies were around the world. Movies especially. When it comes to music, I mean, Britain is pretty darn influential, especially considering its size.
Of Silicon Valley. Its economy would mostly be dominated by the finance and service industry, although a substantial manufacturing and general blue-collar.
Natural resources. Yes. The USA, Canada, and Australia. Holy crap. And enormous coastlines. I'm pretty sure Canada's coastline is already the largest. I don't know what the second largest is, actually. I don't think it's the US because it doesn't have a lot of... Ooh, Alaska is pretty jaggedy. It's got to be Russia or something.
Our economy would exist as well. The Anglosphere would be home to more oil reserves than any other state, controlling Scotland's North Sea oil fields along with the oil fields of Texas and the Gulf of Mexico, and the oil fields of Alberta, just to name a few. Mining would also be particularly prominent in Australia.
And Canada and the US.
Of $72,000, the 8th highest in the world, behind Iceland but ahead of...
That's crazy. For a population of almost 500, half a billion, being the average
of
72,000 is incredible.
$1,000, the 8th highest in the world, behind Iceland but ahead of Denmark, would mean at least on paper the citizens of the Anglosphere would be amongst the wealthiest people in the world. Militarily, if we assume all five...
Where does Iceland get most of its money? Obviously fishing, but probably have a good amount of tourism too. And natural resources, probably. It's interesting.
Anglosphere would be amongst the wealthiest people in the world. Militarily, if we assume all five nations' armed forces would combine into one, the Anglosphere would be militarily the most powerful nation in the world, almost entirely due to the inclusion of the United States military. The Anglosphere's military budget would be a jaw-dropping $1 trillion, with the United States military budget making up 87% of that. In terms of active duty troops, however, it would only be the second largest military in the world, overtaking India.
$1 trillion on just your military. That is $1 trillion for a country to make $1 trillion of everything in 1 year is a lot. And to be able to put all of that on just military, crazy. Obviously, America has a very large military, but the other three are obviously very capable.
Yeah, but behind China with its 1.7 million troops in comparison to China's 2 million. It would also have far more warplanes than any other country, with a total of 7,241. It would have the second largest nuclear weapons arsenal in the world, with 5,449 warheads, only behind Russia. It would also be home to some of the largest and most important cities in the world. Not counting metro areas, its 5 largest cities will be London, followed by New York, Sydney, Los Angeles, and Toronto.
Sydney has more people than Los Angeles? That's crazy.
In terms of a capital city, it's unclear what city may be chosen.
London. Although London might be, maybe like Los Angeles, because it'd be kind of... We have a globe here. All right. So... Yeah, London, because the Pacific Ocean is huge, and it makes me think that the U.S. is closer to Australia than it really is, when really it's... I mean, look at the globe, like right there. It's just ocean. It's just ocean. Like... But yeah, I guess I'd go with London or New York maybe or something. London.
Seem like the obvious choice,
Yeah.
given it is both the most populous city in the Anglosphere and serves as the capital of the British Empire. However, its location on the opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean from North America, where about 80% of the Anglosphere would live, may lead to a city in North America being chosen instead, such as New York. It's also possible a more neutral city, such as Toronto, may be chosen, as to have the capital be in either the former UK or US.
That's a good idea. Because usually capital... Actually, is that true? Paris, London... Usually capitals, I feel like, aren't the largest city, but I'm thinking about it, and maybe that's not the case. No, actually, wait. Yeah, Toronto would be interesting.
Thanks for watching. Do you think the Anglosphere will ever unite into a city?
Yes, we must do it. Because I just want to. No other reason than that. Yeah, that was good. That was a fun video.
And if it were to, would that be a good thing? Comment your opinion.
Depends who you ask. It'd be good for some, bad for others. I'm sure a lot of people just don't want to, as much as the USA would bring to the table, I think a lot of countries, including the Anglophile countries, just kind of don't want to deal with us and wouldn't like this so much. But it's not a choice. It's happening. I don't know how, but I want it right now. No, I don't know. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing all right. And hopefully I'll see you next video. Bye, guys.